Hey, everybody, welcome today to Listing Group Therapy, the time we get together and we lament, celebrate, and figure out just how it is we survive this crazy, crazy market. Now we're in not just COVID, we're in a pre-vaccinated COVID world, post-election, pre-upheaval market, whatever, right? And business is still happening. I'm excited today that we have David Nadjafi with us as our listing group therapist. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
You sound so excited there, David.
I was just texting. Thank you. Sorry.
That was fantastic. Okay. We can see how excited we sometimes get around here to be our listing group therapist. All right. Well, David, you and I were talking a little bit yesterday about some of the things that you have had going on in your farm and around some of the listings that you have recently had. And what I really liked hearing was how you have leveraged listings you have into more listings or buyers. And really that is the key. As agents, we need to take full advantage of every listing opportunity we get. Listings are the gift from the real estate gods, as Gary puts it in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Gift from the real estate gods, because they beget more business. If we are properly marketing it, you should be getting at least one additional piece of business from it, and really closer to two from every listing you have. And you are doing that in spades. So why don't you kind of tell me a little bit about, or kind of recap what we talked about yesterday, and then we're going to dive into more of the nitty gritty of that.
Okay, so it was kind of, I don't know, sometimes you're just fortunate, but, it was like a perfect storm. Everything came together yesterday. I got a buyer who contacted me and said, hey, listen, I want you to represent me. And it was one of the buyers that was actually put in an offer on my listing that didn't get. So they're like, listen, we don't know if our agent is doing good enough. So I had to go through that. I also got another seller, one of the neighbors called.
Through that, he means proper disclosure. I can't talk to you, and make sure they're not represent the whole. He made sure everything was done right.
I had him email me the request, so I have it in writing to begin with, and then I had him sign a buyer broker agreement, which I usually don't with my buyers, but with this one I figured it's necessary. And as luck would have it, I had a seller that called me and said, hey, listen, I want to sell my house in about 4 months, and I want you to handle it for me. And I said, hey, listen, I have a buyer right now. So we're actually showing it on Friday. At the very same time, I get, I was just showing you this. So this was actually what I sent out after selling 2 houses next door to each other on Nolan in Chandler. I sent it out, and I got an email from another seller in there saying that, hey, I really want to congratulate you for your success on our street. I happen to live on Nolan as well, and I really appreciate what you did and how much you sold these houses for, and we're hoping that you can do the same for us. We're recording your information, so when it's time for us to sell, which will be early next year, we can contact you. And of course, besides saying thank you. Oh, and by the way, they were also looking for a couple of referrals, window washers and this and that. So I'm like, oh, I'm more than flattered that you think of me that way. And yes, here's what I can do for you. Here's a snapshot of your neighborhood. Here's 2 window washers. And also, here's my, what else did I send them? Here's some of the reviews and, the testimonials that I've gotten from other, my past clients and everything else. And that went back and forth 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 emails with me and that, possible seller. which is really good sign. I mean, it's a line of communication has been established. And they congratulated me again for having such beautiful reviews. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I have great clients. So we hit it off. So I have no doubt it's a $750,000 house, and it just fell on my lap, and I really appreciate it. And I think every time we are doing something like I see Michael's on the call, when he gets like 200 people coming in through an open house, and the neighbors see it, that's just the perfect opportunity to get right in front of them. And even if they just like barely raise their hand, just get out there and show them what we've done and what we can do for them. So yeah, follow-ups and continuation of the sale is mighty important.
Yeah. Well, David, I was so impressed when we were talking about that yesterday. And when we talk about things just falling out of our lap, the truth is that you have done all the layered pieces going up to that. So someone who's a new agent looking at this and it's like, well, I don't have reviews, or I don't have contacts to window washers and stuff like that. You can't let that stop you. This is your place where you begin that's where you jump on like our KWEV agents Facebook group and you say, who knows some window washers, and you get a couple of referrals, and then you make that referral. As you get some reviews, you start using them. And in the beginning, you just leverage off what the office reviews are. The office has reviews, people have reviewed KWEV, leverage off those. But you have systematically added these pieces into your business over time to be able to do that. And when we go back and we talk about your consistency, the fact that this is going to be the third seller on the same street, that's because of the consistent way that you have followed up on each of your other deals, that this person is, on the streets like, okay, well, David's clearly the guy we need to get in here to sell this house, right? I want to break down a little bit. Let's go over first. Let's talk about that one. The house is on Nolan. That's the street, right? Nolan?
Right.
How did that start? How did the first listing on Nolan come about? How did that lead to the second one? And then you kind of shared with us how the third one's coming about. So go ahead.
So the first one, believe it or not, belonged to a realtor friend of mine. And he's in commercial. And I just told him, I said, listen, I really want to penetrate your neighborhood. Just let me put my sign on your yard. And for that, I will pre-market your house. I will market it for you. I'll do all the work. I do all the paperwork. You don't have to pay me. If I do a good job, throw me a bone later. And he's like, okay, you can do that. So all I wanted to do was really plant my flag.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted, I think he wanted $675,000 for his house when we first started. This is March of 2020. So I studied the house and I did my pre-marketing, and this was before the coming soon for MLS. So I was able to do my little tricks with Zillow and everything else. And I noticed that I can get more for it. So I listed it for $685,000. And before I was even able to activate it, I had 3 offers at $685,000, which I accepted one. And we were under contract. My seller was more than giggle for it. And COVID hit. That same week, COVID hit. And 5 days later, those sellers backed out. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Here's the start of everything. But I didn't panic. What I did is went back and contacted all the other agents that had contacted me and bitched me out because I sold it before I activated it. And I'm like, okay, here's your chance. So they came back, and one of them had an escalating clause in there. Make a long story short, I ended up selling it for $691,000. At the time, was the highest price house sold in that neighborhood. So I sold that one. Next door neighbor to him was a guy from Indiana who used to use this house as a winter home, as a second home. And my seller, my friend, the realtor told me, he said, we have had a conversation about selling his house. Why don't you contact him? more than happy to. So I started contacting him. He had a wife that was ill, dealing with cancer, COVID, and everything else. He said he can't come, and he asked me after 3 months being in constant contact with him, and offering him different values and everything else. He asked me if I could just manage that whole move of his. So yes, I went ahead and opened his house up, which was closed for a year and a half, had it all cleaned out, took all the dead bugs out of there, including all the scorpions. Had the place, had the pest control in there, everything else, had it cleaned up enough, took pictures, and then I had to activate it. And before you knew it, and oh, by the way, we pushed that market to $739,000. The same exact house 3 months later, 4 months later. We pushed it to $739,000, and the buyers in them and blue. They came in and they offered full price. I talked to my seller. I said, "Hey, you want me to open it up?" He says, "No, man, just take it." So we accepted the $739,000, and then the work just began, because now I had to get the movers in there and get all the personal items packed up and shipped to them. Then I arranged for a estate sale. They came in there for 2 days. Well, for a few days, they came in and marked everything. And then we opened it up for 2 days. They came in and bought everything in the house, except for 3 pieces. So everything was very, very successful. And the 3 pieces that was left, we donated to a charity, which my sellers were more than happy about it. And, it went without a hitch. We closed it up. And these sellers were so happy with everything that I did. They actually sent me a gift, a $500 gift certificate to Steak 44. And, I kept sending him wine, of course, he's a wine connoisseur. So we kept sending each other gifts. And then the third one is the one that just called me. I don't know anything about him, but I will find out.
Yeah, you will. And so the thing that strikes me about that is how much time people are seeing you working on the property, right? In all 3 of those cases, it wasn't like there was ever just a sign and then that was the end of it.
Oh no.
There was you got your sign up, and then you were consistently there in each case. You were present, and so people along the street are seeing that, and they're taking notice of it, just like you had happen.
Well, let me also say, when I sold the first one, the bone that he threw at me was $10,000, and the second one, when I listed it for 7%, not 6. I listed it for 7%, and so I had a really good chunk of commission coming out of that one, because I only offered 2.5% co-broke, and then God knows what's going to happen with this next one coming up. I'm sure it will be very beneficial. And I'm actually thinking about moving my farm to that neighborhood, because I seem to be having more luck with that.
You seem to have a dominant presence there, right?
Yeah. I mean, these houses were right by the gate too. So as soon as you open the gate, you come in, you keep seeing my signs over there. First, just listed. Just pending. So that
really is the key. In the listing game, taking market share is about having signs in the yard and having them in a place of visibility. And that is exactly what you've had, and it's driving your results here. Anybody take notice of what David talked about for the first listing there, what he did and how he got it?
Yeah, I was actually going to comment on that, because I see questions on the realtor forums, quite frankly, all the time saying, should I take a discount? Should I reduce my commission for a listing? And I think David's example, and one other time I took a flat fee listing, is the answer is it depends. I mean, if it's going to gain you a key corner or market share, or a foothold into a neighborhood, I say, yeah, it's absolutely worth it. I took a flat fee listing to put our sign right on the corner of our farm as we were trying to dig into it. And I'll never regret it, because the return on the backside was worth it.
Completely. completely. And it becomes a business decision that you have to make. And that's what David did, is what you did, Charles. When there's a strategic reason you want to get in somewhere, I am an advocate. What is it? Ardent, a huge. I'm a big proponent. I say, go for it, do it. Whatever it takes to get your sign in the yard, you do it. If that means you take a reduced commission, if it means you essentially do it for free, if it means you do it for flat fee, whatever it takes, you get your sign in the yard. Now, that doesn't mean you have to give away everything. Okay, you have to understand from a business perspective, you're making a business decision. An agent of mine on our team had been wanting to break into a neighborhood similar to what you're talking about there, David. She hadn't been able to land a listing yet, just because it would go up before she even had a chance to have a sit down and talk to somebody. Well, she found somebody who wanted to go with a flat fee kind of service, like you were talking, Charles. And she came to me and was like, well, what do I do here? How do I compete with that? And I said, well, you beat it. You either meet it or beat it. That's what you do. Don't worry about trying to have to come in and like flex and say, no, you have to pay me 3% or what. No, if you're trying to get your foothold in that market, let's go in there, let's take market share, and we're going to leverage the heck out of that property. Well, this was a, $700,000 type price point home. I think it was 650s where we were at on it. She did it for a flat fee, like you said, Charles, you had done one, but she turned that one flat fee into 7 additional pieces of business in that neighborhood. That was a very strategic business decision, and it wouldn't have come about if there hadn't been the foresight or the take the risk to go in, get your flag in there, make it known, then make everyone see you and take notice. And that's exactly what you did, David. You went in, you said, let me get my flag in there, put up my flag. I got my sign out now, and now everyone's going to see just what I do, and I'm going to leverage it. And it has absolutely happened into what will be a 3rd listing in that same area. It's fantastic. So look for those opportunities, folks. Don't believe that we are any more in a world where, and I used to be guilty of this, where it's like, well, what do you say when somebody asks you to reduce your commission? No. Would you like to hear the rest of the script? There isn't any, right? No, you have to start to pivot and look at it with a better business decision as to what we're going to do, because that's what we are. We're business people. So any other comments on the 3 listings there that David has created, those 3 listing opportunities within the span of 12 months on the same street? Any other questions about that? No.
Just a comment on what you said just now, Jason, about, don't be afraid to do it for less. I'd say also don't be afraid to ask for that reciprocation and say, look, I am doing you a solid. So what I expect in the next year is 3 phone calls of people I should be talking to or something like that. I mean, I don't think that's a bad trade.
Great. I don't either, Charles. That's excellent, right? I'm doing you this solid. So here for this, I'll give you that. Give me this, I'll give you that. It's negotiation, right? It may be a gratuitous promise that they make you, oh, sure, I'll make 3 calls to you, but they're committed and they're going to be more thinking about you for sure over the next years. And sometimes that's, it ends up being that you move yourself into position to help them wherever they're going, where that you weren't that agent either. By helping them sell, you now get to be the agent that takes them where they're going as well.
Well, it should not be misunderstood that you can't use that as a point of sale. In other words, you can't just go in there and say, hey, I'll sell it for you for less.
Right.
That's desperate. And, I've been in sales for 30 years before this. And I think the first person that opens their mouth is going to wonder one who's going to buy it. So if it's you, you're going to buy your own listing and walk out of there. So it's always, I tell you that the listing I just went on the contract with is actually a referral that I went and met with, and they wanted to list with a, they bought a new build and they wanted to list with the guy for 1.25. So in other words, they wanted to get 4.25. They wanted to pay 4.25 to sell their house. And he told me, he says, you know what? This house is going to sell itself. I said, so why do you even want to pay 1.25? Sell it yourself. Put a for sale sign on it and sell it yourself. You don't have to pay that. Why do you want to do that? But then realize how much money you're leaving on the table. You know, so that's another example. $425,000 he wanted to sell it for. I listed it for 30 and I sold it for $446. I'm under contract right now from this weekend. That's where all the other two opportunities just showed up. But I was able to show him my value. And I actually told him, I said, listen, I'll do it for you for 5%. But since it's so far away from me, I'm actually willing to do that because now I don't have to do this and this and that. He said, no. I want you to do this and this and that. And I give you 6%. I said, now we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the one you just put under contract this weekend. This
weekend, yes. And this is the one I'm getting the buyer from and the seller.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So here, in which that's a whole other story, right? How you came about getting this listing, but yeah. you got this listing. Talk about what you did for your marketing plan to leverage this into the two additional pieces of business, as well as some follow-up business that can come from that. Talk to us about this particular listing and your marketing plan.
So I consulted with them. They wanted to have a move-in ready, and they had pulled out all the carpets, all the flooring, everything else. So we talked about what kind of carpet to put in there, and actually give him the connection that we could get a really good price for. We consulted on the coloring of the flooring and the paint. They had like purple paints and this and that, and we decided to go very neutral so it's acceptable to everybody. And we had all that implemented, and the house turned out really, really nice. I work with a lender who's a very genuine guy, and he helps my business a lot. He also works with Michael. As a matter of fact, I have Michael to thank for. He's the one who introduced me to him. His name is Bob Wasico, is with VIP, and what we did was we created a buzz by putting this on the market as a coming soon for about 2 weeks while we still getting the paint and everything else ready. And I was getting calls from all the agents, and that's why I kept raising the price. When can we see it? When can we see it? How do we see it? So you can go drive by it, but you can't knock on the door. You can't see it. So we kept everybody in a state that they just wanted to see it. And we opened it up at 1:00 on a Friday. We went active on a Wednesday, but again, didn't let anybody in till 1:00 on a Friday afternoon. We had 100 White Castle burgers and 4 cases of White Claw sitting at the counters, and cookies and water and everything else. And we opened it up, and we had probably 50 or 60 groups go through. And by the end of the day, by 5:00, there was nonstop. The frenzy that was created was by not showing it, and it's a hot neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that everybody wants to get into, and there wasn't anything available. So we took advantage of this situation of the market. You might not be able to do that everywhere, but this market allowed us to be stingy and not show it, and just like I said, create a frenzy. And by Saturday morning, I had like 3 or 4 offers all over asking, and by Saturday 2:00, I had 9 offers. The highest one being $16,000 over asking. And by Sunday, I had to beat all these realtors off of me. It's like, why didn't we get it? Why didn't we get it? Why didn't you counter us? And I could have. I could have probably taken it up to even higher, but the price that we had was waiving the appraisal. And my seller said, you know what? I'm happy. Let's go. Shut it down. And I'm happy too, because it's 40 miles away from here.
And you leverage that opportunity into 2 additional pieces of business, and you can see why. That the activity that it created additional interest, and so you've got another seller from it, you said, and then of course the buyer that you mentioned who came about by contacting you, like, Why didn't we get the property? And go ahead and tell a little bit about how that agent showed up.
That's the funniest thing.
This
So,
is a good reminder for all of you out there.
Older men, probably in their 70s, maybe even higher, and showed up in a bright green, like one of those like fluorescent green T-shirts, and a fluorescent green bathing suit type short shorts. Not very. It wasn't tight, at least.
What?
I didn't even get down to see if he's wearing shoes or flip-flops or something. But yeah, he
Did he steal all your White Claw?
he didn't exactly look the part. It didn't affect my decision, or I did, mention that to my sellers. But I would imagine if you're going out there to look for a $500,000 house, you might want to look a little bit more presentable.
Yes, yes, because it does make a difference. I mean,
Oh man, that's awesome.
Just imagine the visual Michael's having right now.
That is just, it's almost like Monty Python or something, that's just crazy.
Well, that's why they're my clients now, not his.
That is correct.
I do have to say that there is something very powerful of having your loan officer there with you at open houses or with you doing those things, because they have the option, like what Dave could have met somebody and he can get them pre-qualified right there. And that's something that's very powerful to have in your holster for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Well, guys, any questions for our listing group therapist here?
Yeah, I got a quick question.
Fire away, Sly.
A little bit of a side note, but is there anything that I need to consider if I'm going to offer alcohol at an open house? I mean, is that just cool, or like, do I need to worry about, making sure people don't, just get hammered and drive away? Or, I mean, just kind of take a chance?
One per.
There you
Actually, it's actually hard to give that away. One of the ways we could actually gauge how much these people are engaging with us is how many burgers they would take, or if they would take a burger, or if they would take a drink. These White Claws are only 5%, and I didn't see anybody coming for the second one. So no, I wouldn't be pouring shots of tequila out there. But a White Claw or a glass of wine or champagne or something, I don't think it's going to hurt. I don't think it's going to hurt. But
you're usually going to be okay. Just from a not. What the heck is that, Michael? I'm afraid. What?
For your open house, Dave.
So, Sly, there is something called social host liability. You have to be aware of how much you're letting them drink. But as an open house, it's more of a casual. If they just grab one or two and you're not charging for it, then you don't have much of an issue at all.
Okay.
To be concerned about.
But I definitely, if I see them take a drink or something, I definitely can't let them sign any contracts on that day, right? I mean, I know that's.
It depends on how much they have. That the question is a matter of competency, and they would have to be pretty drunk to remove that. So you'd be okay.
Okay, cool. All right.
Other questions? No. All right.
David's just reminding me that I need to work on better price points.
Yep.
Leave my market alone.
Well, David, really, really great job that you're doing. You're having a great year. You are following the models. You are following leads, listings, leverage, and look what it's doing for your business. I love seeing that. I love the stories and hearing about what's coming up next for you. Keep up the great work, my man.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Everybody, thanks for joining us today for our listing group therapy. Until next time, be safe, be strong.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.